Hey, y'all, and welcome back to another segment here on GEMS Podcast. If you're new, thank you for joining us. If you are a seasoned listener, welcome back to the community. Today, I will be chatting with Keith Willard, and he's going to tell us all about starting from the scratch and taking something such as an idea and making it a reality. But here's a little bit more about what Keith does. And for those of you who may not know, I am the founder and host, Miss Genesis Amaris Kemp, but it's about collaboration today. So let me welcome Keith. But before I bring him on, here's more about him. Keith Willard is the owner of Keith Willard Events, a social and corporate event planning company in business for over 7 years. Before restarting his company, Keith spent more than a decade working for a hotel in social catering. Starting as an entry-level catering salesperson in 2004 and working his way up to Director of Catering for Ritz-Carlton Bal Harbour in 2014. Previously, Keith was the executive director of a local not-for-profit in Dallas, Texas. Whoop, whoop. Shout out all the Texans, where he owned his skills of working with small budget. He then continued his love of events as a senior event planner with a company called Event Presentations, where he traveled the world putting together events for notable clients such as Nokia and AT&T. Along the way, Keith was responsible for 1,000-person galas and Madam Tussauds in London, as well as planning Mark Cubans, get that again, Mark Cubans' 40th birthday party, which included a concert by John Melloncamp. And for those of you who don't know who Mark Cuban is, he is the owner of the Mavericks, and he's also on Shark Tank. Since starting his business in 2015, Keith has been the recipient of numerous awards, including Best of from The Knot, Best Wedding Planner from Wedding Wire, Top 10 from Modern Luxury Magazine, and Innovator of the Year from the National Association of Catering and Events. Now, Keith continues his excellence with corporate and wedding planning service while producing an award-winning podcast called Behind the Veil. The weekly live podcast has had notable guests such as David Tutera, Colin Cowie, and Monte Durham from Say Yes to the Dress, which led to winning the Telly Award for Best Unscripted Online Series. So y'all, he has done a lot. He is a subject matter expert in his field. So let's welcome Keith Willard, the man behind it all.
Oh my goodness. And I am so sorry about that bio. Like, wow, I did not realize that, because when people ask for bios, sometimes you go, okay, I'll send them everything. And then I'll edit it down. Sorry, that almost bored me to tears. So sorry, guys.
No worries. And the reason why I didn't condense it was because I wanted to show the transition as well as the transformation in your career path, which led you to what you're doing now. Because sometimes people just see what you're doing now, but they may not see the start ugly moments. They may not have seen how you transition or etc. So even though it was long and lengthy, I think it was just to where you are now, Keith, because you've been in business for a while, and had you not tried different avenues and venues, you wouldn't be where you are today.
That's true. If I didn't fail, I wouldn't have learned. That's all there is to it. You don't learn until you fail.
So on a lighter note, I want to give the audience a chance to connect with you in a fun way. So this is our fun part of the segment, and it's the connection segment. So there are two options. We could do an icebreaker or a rapid fire 10-question game. What
Rapid
are you
fire.
Okay. So here we go. We're
Okay.
playing rapid fire with Keith and Genesis. Do 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 do. Question number 1, favorite color?
Green.
Question number 2, what's your drink of choice? Coffee, tea, or something else?
Tequila.
Ooh, yes, love it. Question 3, if you could trade places with anyone, who would it be and why?
My dog, because it's spoiled.
Question 4, If you could interview any person on your podcast, let's do a current person. Who would it be?
Current person that to interview a current person on my podcast.
Yes.
Oh, poop. There's so many. Obama,
Okay.
Michelle. Oh, by the way, Michelle Obama.
Okay, you want Michelle. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the challenge, y'all. So, challenge for you, Keith. You could either accept or reject. So, you want to interview Michelle Obama on Behind the Veil. So, I challenge you within the next 2 weeks to reach out to Michelle Obama's PR team, whether you're sliding in her DM or you're sending them an email with your pitch on why you want to have a conversation with Michelle. How can you
Writing this
add
down.
value? How can she add value? And also just shoot your shot, because at this point you have nothing to lose. They're either going to say yes or they're going to say no. But with your accolades and the amount of success you have, it may work out in their favor to just have an even exchange.
That'd
So
be amazing. That would be amazing. I will totally reach out. It's funny because that's one of the things. It's like you don't know until you try. You just don't know until you try. So I might as well.
so are you accepting the challenge?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so put a date by when you're going to have it done. You get 2 weeks. Then, in order for me to know that you didn't just have lip service, you actually have to screenshot me when you reach out and what it looked like, so I could know that you took the challenge serious. And for those of
Totally.
you that are in the audience, when you see Keith, whether you see him online, on LinkedIn, Instagram, or wherever, slide in his DMs and ask him how he's doing with the challenge so we could be his accountability partners.
I love it. I love it. Yes, actually, I'll have this done by July 4th.
Okay, by the holiday.
Yeah, by the holiday. Absolutely. I'll have it done by the holiday.
Okay.
Of course, I got to figure out who our PR team is, but okay.
It gives you something to do. Work.
Yep, exactly.
Question 5. You get 3 random acts of kindness per day for you to do for someone else. What are your 3 for today?
Um, give somebody a ride, buy somebody lunch, help somebody plan their wedding.
Okay. Question 6. If you could be a fly on the wall and listen into any conversation, what conversation are you listening it to?
Rudy Giuliani making excuses to Trump.
Question 7. Do you have a dream car that you admire right now?
Yes. So there is an all electric, um, oh my goodness. No, of course it just totally went blank, but there's an all electric SUV Mustang that I am obsessed with.
Oh, I think I've seen the one that you're talking about. It kind of like the back is kind of like round back
Yeah.
and okay, I see. I didn't
I'm
know those were all electric.
obsessed. Yes, I'm obsessed with this because it's a Mustang and it's a SUV, which of course has a planner. I always need to have storage, and it's all electric. So I'm just like totally obsessed with this car.
Okay. So other challenge, whenever we have dreams and we
Yeah.
want those dreams to turn into realities, go test drive that car.
That is not a bad idea. Oh my God. I didn't even think about that. Why wouldn't I go test drive this? Okay. Look at you. Boom. Love it.
Question
Writing this
8.
down.
As a wedding planner, do you have a favorite wedding planning movie?
Um, no. I hate all wedding planning movies.
Okay.
Because we're not Jennifer Lopez with our little earpiece and 6-inch heels. That's not how it works. That is not how it works. Oh my God.
Oh gosh. Question 9. Name something crazy that you have done in your life that was actually a character building exercise.
Something crazy that I've done in my life that was a character building exercise. Wow. I mean, there's a lot of like streaking and over drinking and lots of wow. Character building. I don't know if it ever actually built any characters. I mean, a rap sheet, it built a rap sheet. I don't know if it built a character, but yeah. Um, wow, that's a really hard one. I'm gonna pass on that because I can't think of anything specific. yeah, there's nothing specific that really comes to mind except, like I said, um, I guess trying to being more free with myself, because typically I'm pretty buttoned up and behind the scenes, and we always have to have a specific image when we're in front of people. So being able to let loose and just be myself, without the clothes, when I was younger, not now.
Okay. And question 10. It is our pass or play question, Keith, and here are the rules.
Okay.
If you pass, this is where you get to ask me a question. If you choose to play, I ask one last question to wrap up rapid fire. So, do you want to pass or play?
Pass.
Okay. What's your question?
What's your greatest fear?
Oh, dang. That's a good one. I'll just say the first thing that came into my mind since it's rapid fire. I would say those big, creepy, crawly spiders. And the only reason why I say that is because when we were in Vegas, my husband and I, my husband raised his hand for me to get on stage with Chris Angel. And for those of you who don't know who Chris Angel, he's the magician. And all of a sudden he asked me that question and I said spiders and a tarantula just appeared. And I literally
No.
almost tripped over this couch on stage in front of this big old group of people. And all I could remember was saying, holy sh. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, how the heck did he do that? Like,
That's incredible. And and the thing is like spiders, we were just in Italy, and one of the things that really surprised me is that they have these monstrous spiders. So you go to all these like beautiful ruins, and then all of a sudden there's like this huge crazy spider. And all I kept thinking about is this Australia, because they say in Australia everything wild is there to kill you. I've never been to Australia, but I've heard. And so that's, for some reason, that came into my head when I saw this big spider. It's like I totally get where you're coming from on that one. That's crazy.
amazing. And I hope you enjoyed rapid fire and the connection part of the segment, because then it allows the audience to get to know you in a fun and personal manner outside of the meat of the conversation, which is what you're helping people do. Start from scratch,
Yeah.
learn their crafts, and really take those ideas and formulate it into the final product. So let's talk about how you began to get involved in the work that you're doing, because you are multifaceted, Keith, and you have done quite a bit. So let's start with giving us a little glimpse into your background and how did you begin to make those transitions and pivots?
Well, okay, I'll do the short story, because I'm probably much older than you, and so there's a lot more backstory. But I started my career as an executive director of a small nonprofit, which is what you were talking about in the bio. And because it was a small not for profit, the only way to really make money was by throwing parties, selling tickets to stuff, organizing concerts, get a special singer in, having a dance party, doing some type of interesting cocktail reception. And because we were not for profit, there was no money. And so I had to figure out how to make really interesting things out of no money. And also, it also taught me how to ask people for sponsorships, donations, what have you, and not being afraid of getting a no. Right, to keep asking until I got a yes. And I think that really formulated a lot about what I do in my life, is because I figure out how to make people's budgets work. I have to think about outside of the box when it comes to visuals and decor, and I never afraid to ask somebody a question, right? Because you know I mean, what was it? There's a saying that I usually say, and now of course, I can't think of it on the fly. But yeah, so it was actually at one of my events that a gentleman named Russell Holloway, who is the owner of the Feature Presentations or Event Presentations, which was the company that I went to work for, and he actually came to the event and said, who did all of this? Who came up with the idea? How did you find these sponsors? And so I was answering all these questions, and he asked, he's like, have you ever thought about doing events professionally? And I had said, Actually, no. I mean, my world was not for profit." And he's like, well, I'd like to hire you. And within a couple of weeks, I'm all over the world. right? I mean, and the thing is that a lot of people don't understand in the corporate world, you don't really get to visit these cities. You fly in, you go from the airport to the hotel or the venue, you do the party, and then you fly out. So it sounded super glamorous. It was not glamorous, but it was a huge learning curve, and it really changed the direction of my life forever. And so I will always be grateful to this gentleman. He unfortunately passed away several years ago from ALS, but he was instrumental in giving me my dream job without me knowing it was my dream job, right? Because sometimes life has a way of pushing you in the direction that you're supposed to go. And sometimes you just have to let it push you. And then so from there, I opened up my own business for many years, and then I got burned out, like a lot of people. You know, you're in one part of your career, and at some point you're just like, oh my God, I haven't had a day off in like 3 years. I have no relationship. I have no life. All I do is work. And so I decided that I needed to have kind of a midlife breakthrough. I don't call it a crisis because it was a midlife breakthrough. And I decided that I wanted to live the simple life because I had literally started my career as an executive director and went right into events and was busy, busy, busy. So I never had that college experience of waiting tables, hanging out, going to the beach, relaxing, living the easy life, quote unquote. We all know it's not easy. Wait staff have the hardest jobs on this planet.
Let's
But
pause there really quick because
yeah, sorry,
I resonate with that because I have some parallels there,
me too.
especially coming from a corporate background. So even though I've had like the glamour part in the later part of my career, because I am in my early 30s, but I spent 15 years in corporate America, and I didn't have like the college life experience because I always worked full time and I went to
Yep.
school at night to pursue my degree. So I had a lot of structure there. So like you, I didn't have the glamorous stuff, the glamorous life where I'm going to the frat parties or the sororities or anything like that
Exactly.
college kids do. So my first job was real estate. So I worked for Remax Preferred Home. Then after that,
Wow.
I went to the cancer center. Then I got involved in oil and gas for 12 years. And I learned there because I had a start at the bottom. So I started as an administrative assistant and worked my way up to trade regs and compliance. That was the latter part of my recent career. But then prior to that, I started at the bottom as an
Yeah.
imaging clerk. And
Yeah.
all I did was scan papers. It was super boring. Then I went into project management. Then I went into HSC, so health, safety, and environmental. Then I ended up as a manager. But I was like, doing it for a small company, whenever you
Yeah.
make it up the chains, you're capped out in your salary. So it's like, what do I do next? You could either stay there and get comfortable and complacent, or you could take
Yep.
that leap of faith. So that allowed me to take that leap of faith to that Fortune 500 company where no one knew me, which I had to start all the way over. And it felt like a slap in the face because I was like, I'm going
Yep.
from a manager to an admin assistant. I was like, I
Yep.
am not a lunch pusher or a coffee getter, but it humbled me. And to your point, life happens to you, but it also happens for you and it pushes you in the director. Because when you're an admin, you get to know the VPs, you get to know a little bit of everything. You're kind of the glue that keeps it together. And then you're building your rapport, kind of similar to what you were doing. You had no idea
100%.
that guy was pushing you. So I did like golf tournaments for United Way. I got to connect with people with junior achievement. I got to connect with different officials and et cetera, which of course I'm not going to disclose it because I did a lot of proprietary stuff.
Right.
But I really resonate with that sentiment. And then you do get to a period where you are burnt out, so then you have to ask yourself, is this really what I want to do? And if not, what does the next chapter look like? And sometimes life happens where you're forced out, so whether it's a layoff or furlough, or you may have like a little, like you say, maybe a breakdown. I don't know if you would call it a crisis, or let's just say a point of reflection where you
There we go.
realize that point of reflection makes you realize that there's more to life than what I'm doing. So then you kind of slow down and you reprioritize, kind of similar to what you said. You said you didn't have time for a relationship. You
Yep.
were on a plane, off a plane, on a plane, off a plane. And then you're like, this is not what Keith wanted. And I'm here to say, even though Keith and I were in different industries, we have different parallels, but it does come to a
Crazy.
point where everyone needs to go through their own point of self-reflection and analyze, is this what I want for myself? And if not, what are the tools that I need in order to operate and move to the next vehicle? Would you say that's a good summary based on what you stated, Keith?
Yeah, the thing is that I think that I think one of the things that I had to learn in life is that, it is okay not to be what other people think you are, right? And so everybody has kind of an idea of who someone is by what when they meet them. So in other words, when you were with the oil and gas companies, people kind of made their connection to you via oil and gas. Was that really who you are? Probably not. And so I think sometimes we get caught up in how other people see us, and it restricts us from becoming who we really are, right? And I think one of the things that really helped me is because I was in Texas at the time, and I moved to Florida where I knew no one. So I was able to reinvent myself completely, and I had basically no past, which was both hard and good at the same time. I mean, you said it. It was kind of a slap in the face because you're like, well, I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this for, 15 years. But there was also some freedom that came with it. And so when I moved to Florida, long story short, I did the waiting job. I lived in the Keys, had the best time for about 6 months, and then I was bored to death. Oh my God. It stabbed me in the eye. I was so bored. And I moved to Fort Lauderdale, and through several random connections, again, having to do with events, I ended up starting as a catering manager, entry level catering manager for a hotel. At the time, it was called Hyatt Pier 66. And I had never worked for hotels, knew nobody in that industry. And so I had to learn everything again. But it also exposed me to my new love, which was weddings, right? Because we did a lot of weddings. And I just worked my way up through the hotel industry. And because of what I was doing, I got to know all the vendors. I got to know exactly how they work behind the scenes, not the sales job that they give the clients, but how they actually work. And once I got to a point where and you said that salary cap, same thing happens to hotel people. They get into a certain hotel, and the only way they can get an increase in their salary is by going to a different hotel, right? And so worked my way up to director of catering for Ritz-Carlton, which was a whole crazy another story, but another story. And then I decided that it was time for me to go back into business for myself. And so that was 7 years ago. And so that's where,
Amazing. And
yeah,
let's pause
so
there. So
a lot.
you really learn a lot whenever you are working for someone else's business as an employee, because you're getting to learn the ins and out of that corporation, and the knowledge that you acquire and the business acumen that you gain is what allows you to embrace those transferable skills, where you begin to transition from working for somebody to working for
Yeah.
yourself. And when you work for yourself, some people think it's glamorous. Yes, it's glamorous, but it's not always glamorous in the beginning, because you're working in your business versus on your business. And you may
Right.
not be at the point where it's scalable. So you're doing everything yourself until you get to the point where it makes sense to partner with other people who have a different zone of genius and take your business to the next level. But then also a big component there is networking. Don't dam the bridge that you cross, and really leverage your network that
Ooh,
you have
good
built.
saying.
And
Good saying. I love that. I'm stealing that. Oh, because people typically say don't burn your bridges, but I love how you did that. That was awesome.
I'm
But
gonna
it's
give
true.
credit to my mom. She's West Indian and Caribbean, and I guess that's a Caribbean say. She's like,
Yeah.
"Don't damn the bridge across," in her Caribbean accent. And since I'm first generation American, I can't say it like my mom would say it. But it's so true, because it's
True.
like, your network is tied to your network, but how you show up for yourself because you are your brand and how you build those genuine connections, because it's not just about you connecting with a person to get something out of it. It's about how can both of y'all win together. Like Keith and I are doing this as a collaboration, but
Oh
at the
yeah.
end of this, it's going to drive more conversations because we're going to stay connected based on some similarities that we have or etc. And in order for both of us to win and thrive, we have to support each other and focus more on the commonalities versus the differences, and how can we help each other advance. And I think more people forget that part whenever they're starting from scratch and they're trying to network and they're trying to make those connections or whatnot. They have
Yeah.
that with them method. What's in it for me? But what about if we change the me for the we? What's in it for we? And how can we really create those long lasting relationships to build synergies in order to keep it sustainable?
Yeah. Well, and your podcast is doing exactly that. And that, it's building relationships. And even though I was in the hotel industry, and even though that I was in the event industry, and even though I was in the not for profit industry, it's amazing how many times I find that the paths crossed years later, sometimes a decade later. And depending on their experience with you at that time, will automatically create better things if you have a positive experience in the past. So if you're always putting your best foot forward, even if it's 10 years later, they're going to remember that. And so you never know what position they may now be in and how they can either help you or you can help them. But it's always collaborative. You do not step on other people's feet or heads to get up. You reach out the hand and help each other up.
Yes, absolutely. Each one reach one. I think that's like a saying that some people say. And I know you also help people figure out how to be successful with no prior contacts or relationships. And I feel like that goes back to you building your career and you knowing the vendors, knowing what their wants are, knowing what their whys are, and then the experience that you had with them, they'll probably refer you to another vendor that who's looking for someone with your expertise. So can you give us maybe 5 tips so we could help the individuals that are listening to this recording?
Yeah. The first thing would be never be afraid to ask a question, or never be afraid to let somebody know that you don't know that answer, right? There is nothing wrong with not being knowledgeable in everything, right? And I think that some people make a mistake by saying, "Well, of course I know that," because they don't want to look weak or they don't want to look like they're incompetent. It's better to say, you know what, I actually don't know anything about that. Let me look into that and be honest and upfront. The second thing is network, network, network. Any networking possibility, go to it. And of course, build that affiliation with any professional um, networking groups like NACE, National Association of Catering and Events. If you're in the event industry, ILEA, International Live Events Association, or MPI, which is Meeting Professional International. These organizations are great for people that are just getting into the industry and really need a direction and need a resource to meet other people, right? Volunteer, I think, is the fourth one. Volunteer for local organizations. It's amazing what kind of people, the great people that you're actually going to meet that are volunteering themselves, because it takes a particular type of person to volunteer their time, and you're going to find the most generous, loving, outgoing human beings in that world. And of course, that's the world came from. So I'm a little partial to the not for profit. I really feel like it's our duty to respond. And then I think the last thing is be somebody of your word. If you say you're going to do something by a certain time, then do it by a certain time. Do what you say you're going to do. Don't try to weasel out of it or overpromise. And if you do, be upfront about it. So, if you overpromise something, just say to that person, it's like, look, I did not know what I was getting myself into. I apologize. I'm still working on it. Please just give me a little bit more time and I'm going to make this happen for you. And then follow up with that. Right. But always be your true self to other people and they'll be their true selves to you.
Absolutely. And those are 5 great tips, Keith. And thank you for sharing that. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. If someone asks you to do something and you don't know, just say, I'm not really sure, but let me find out and get back to you, or let me find someone who's able to help you. And then see if the person that you find for them, if you could shadow them so you could learn from them and you could apply that. Get plugged into the right networking groups that's catered to the industry that you're in, where you can learn from SMEs, subject matter experts. Volunteer, because whenever you are volunteering, you're also getting to meet people from other industries that are still volunteering at that event, and you're able to build relationships there while also giving back to a organization that you're passionate about. And then always be your authentic self. Authenticity goes a long way when someone can feel like they could connect with you, not just on a professional level but a personal level, and they see that you're the same in both limelights. They're going to remember that. And the sentiment says people remember how you made them feel, and that goes a long way because you're always going to be in the back of their mind, whether they let you know or not. And sometimes it's hard because we try to placate ourselves because we're seeking validation from other people who were never
Yeah.
even meant to be with us for the lifelong journey or part of our tribe. So don't set yourself up for failure. Just be you, and the right people and the right opportunities that are meant for you will fall into place.
100%. And I'm super impressed with that, the fact that you followed along with that, because I was talking really fast and you picked up on everything. I'm like so impressed with you right now. It's like, wow.
And now we're going to jump into the CTA part of the segment, which is the call to action. And this is your call to action for the audience, Keith. Once they hear this recording, and based on your accolades, based on you starting from scratch and giving them these incredible tips, what else is it that you would like them to do? Do you have a challenge for my audience like I had challenges for you?
Yeah, I think that my challenge for your audience is to do something that makes them feel uncomfortable. Because it's really important to push yourself in multiple ways. So if you're an introvert and you don't like to meet people, then push yourself to go meet somebody new. If you don't feel comfortable applying for a job, then apply for 3 of them. Do something that makes you uncomfortable and follow it through. You'll surprise yourself.
I love that. So get out of your comfort zone, take that leap of faith. And once you take the plunge, on the other side of that plunge is your success. So don't allow fear to condition you to the point where you're remaining complacent and stagnant. And Keith,
Yeah.
how can they reach you? What's your website and what are your primary social media outlets?
Okay, so I just want to add really quick that I heard from there's a famous actor that actually said you can't get to joy until you push through the fear. And I love that saying. You only can get to joy after you push through the fear. Anyway, so people can find me on my website, which is keithwillardevents.com, or they can check out my podcast, which is Behind the Veil by Keith Willard on YouTube. It's a wedding focused podcast. So if you're out there and involved in the event and wedding industry, it's a fun podcast to listen to. We're a little crazy. Or on Instagram, which is Keith Willard. Basically, any social media, if you just put Keith Willard, you'll find me.
And there you have it, folks. Keith Willard, and his last name is spelled as follow: Willard. All of his contact information will be in the show notes. So all you need to do is read, scroll on down, and tap in with Keith. And make sure you like, comment, follow, and subscribe. We're on 40 plus platforms, so there is a place for everyone to listen. And for those of you who like to watch videos, this video is on our YouTube channel, and you can find that by going to GEMS, GEMS, with Genesis Amaris Kemp. And lastly, but not least, Where would I be without my supporters? You know I only think about you. Because of you, we're now ranked in the top 2% globally out of 2.8 million podcasts per the metrics on www.listennotes.com. So, for those of you who like KPIs, you can fact check me and make sure that I gave you the right info. No shade, no shame in the game. And we are currently looking for brand sponsors. It is paid sponsorship to continue the mission of spreading content that is educational, inspirational, and motivational, while also bridging the gap for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Because it does take resources in order to keep a podcast going. So I would greatly appreciate it if you would check out my website, genesisamarisKemp.net, click on that podcast tab to learn more, or send me a personalized email to genesisamarisKemp@gmail.com. Until the next segment, next guest, peace, love, and lots of blessings. And my quote from Babe Ruth for today is, never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game, which means if you allow fear to condition you, you're not going to make those home runs. So I'm here for you to win. Keith wants you to win. So, baby, hit that ball and knock it out the park and run those bases. You got this.